Yo, no. Yo, these people are crazy. You should not put things like this down.
So where were we? After having spent the first part of our honeymoon in Argentina, where Ivan's family is from, and after a delightful Christmas at my mom's place in Constanța, it was time to complete our journey to the origins. So on the second day of Christmas, we boarded a train to Chișinău, the capital of Moldova, where my paternal grandfather's family was from.
It's a pillow-shaped pillowcase for this. Where? What's that? Still roll. That's right. That's low. That's right. Moldova. You can put a square peg in a round hole. You can put a square pillow in a rectangular pillowcase. That's what I'm talking about. Bloop. The definition of bloop.
Let's see. This looks like prison. Prison. I think I want to pass on the bed sheets.
You're gonna sleep on this thing, just naked?
No, with my clothes on.
Straight up prison, and there's prison.
Stained. I think people use this as a tablecloth.
We are in minute 10 of this trip.
Okay. We got a pillow. Okay, this side is not so stained. Almost. Oh my god! Oh. Look, we got some bread.
Oh, nice.
Baby, what do you think of this train?
It makes me thirsty.
No water. No sockets. No electricity. No, how do you call the restaurant card?
Dining card?
Dining card. Nothing. And everything is in Russian, like almost. It is difficult to talk about Moldova and be impartial, objective, or unbiased from my position. On one hand, Moldova is part of me because a quarter of my ancestors were from there. But on the other hand, this December, at the age of 35, I was going there for the very first time. Throughout my childhood and youth, the little I knew about Moldova was from history books and sparse family tales, and it was only in my 30s that I became interested in going there. Moreover, all the members of my dad's family who knew anything about the Moldovan part of the family history have long passed away.
Type Moldova in any search engine and the results will not be encouraging. The least visited country in Europe. Actually, now the third least according to a recent chart by The Telegraph. It's the poorest country in Europe and the country where everyone who wants a better life just leaves it. But we knew there was beauty to be found there and we're determined to find it. We had found our accommodation on Booking.com, and for 3,600 Moldovan lei, or 912 Romanian lei, or $206, we got ourselves 5 nights in a lovely, cozy apartment in what looked like an early 2000s-ish complex. Downstairs there was a hypermarket, aka East European Costco, and a couple of restaurants, and the place was within walking distance from the city center, which was all we needed for a comfortable stay.
Kudos to Elite Rental Apartments for going the extra mile to make us feel like home. This video is not sponsored, by the way, but we forgot to post a review on Booking.com in due time, so we're trying to make it up to them.
And off we went to explore the city. First stop, a monastery.
Shall we go in, my love?
The Ciuflea Monastery was consecrated in June 1858 and apparently was financed by 2 Romanian merchants, who were brothers, who had emigrated from Macedonia to Bessarabia in 1821. At the beginning of the 20th century, it was remodeled in Russian Byzantine style. In 1962, many churches of the Moldavian Soviet Socialist Republic were closed or had their purpose changed. The main church of Chișinău, the Nativity Cathedral, was then turned into an exhibition building, so the head of the Moldova church had to be moved to the then monastery of Ciuflea, which was granted the status of cathedral ever since.
Our next destination was one of the most impressive things we saw in Chișinău, the Military Museum.
History is interpretable, depending on which side you are. And just like other countries in Europe that are not superpowers, the history of today's Republic of Moldova is rather complicated. In short, after the haziness of antiquity and early Middle Ages, Moldova's first 400 official years were spent as part of the Principality of Moldavia. But wait, the Principality of Moldavia was also under Ottoman occupation. So most of what is today the Republic of Moldova, historically called Bessarabia, was ceded to the Russian Empire by the Ottomans in 1812. Parts of it were ceded back to the Principality of Moldavia in 1856. Then in 1859, the Principality of Moldavia united with Wallachia to form Romania. So parts of Moldova were Romanian, parts were under Russian rule. But by 1878, the Russian Empire took back the whole region of today's Moldova. This lasted until 1918 when Moldova united with Romania. But wait, in 1940, after the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, Romania was compelled to cede Bessarabia to the Soviet Union. We tried to take it back in 1941, but it didn't work. So until 1991, Moldova was a Soviet country gaining independence when the USSR dissolved, and staying an independent separate country to this day. Was Moldova a ping-pong ball between today's Romania and Russia for roughly 200 years? Yes. Is it more Romanian? Is it more Russian? One can't answer this question without hurting someone's feelings. It's a never-ending controversial topic when talking to or about Moldovans. But it did make an impression on me while visiting this museum to see the same historical personalities I grew up learning about as a Romanian. To see inscriptions and writings both in Romanian and in Russian. To realize that for the most part, us and them speak the same language and bear the same flag, and yet we are two countries with a border, an exchange rate, and passport control.
Although the country didn't experience a significant radioactive contamination, the tragedy at Chernobyl had its impact on Moldova as well. Because it was a Soviet country, it had to bring its contribution. Over 3,550 Moldovans were mobilized to take part in the damage liquidation operations. Like most Eastern European countries, Romania included, Moldova had its share of Soviet terror. Political repression, mass deportations, forced conscriptions into the Red Army, destruction of churches and cemeteries, nationalization of private property, repression of free speech, forced labor, and many other tragedies were all the reality of those early years of the regime.
More than military museum, this is war museum. You know.
Some dude dressed in a dress, and some guy with fucking, what do you call that, skin disease?
I don't know, everything is in Russian, babe. Did you look kind of creepy?
Yeah, look creepy.
This was by far the part of the museum that left the biggest mark on us. Political executions, bombed buildings during World War II, labor camps, famine, all in the name of building an ideal world. In reality, just a means of control and domination over people and nations.
The last few halls of the museum held a series of memorabilia from communist decades, which definitely contributed to the bittersweet taste we had while leaving the place.
After getting our dose of history, our next destination was the art museum, within walking distance. But being cold and hungry, we stopped at the first restaurant we encountered.
More on that later.
Nice.
We gotta watch Tarkovsky tonight.
This is a city of contrast. You have neo-communist buildings next to Romanian-style churches. You also have what appears to be a early 1900s building next to a construction site. Aren't I parallel enough? Okay. Oh, I'm freezing. That's why everyone does vlogs in the summer, I guess. Walking the streets of what I hope is downtown Chișinău.
The art museum was founded in 1939 by a Moldovan sculptor, Alexandru Plămădeală, and the French painter, Auguste Bayard. Sadly, Alexandru Plămădeală died in 1940, only 1 year after founding the museum.
How the art museum starts with church-related stuff.
Why do you think?
I think church is very important for these people.
And it must be the oldest kind of art.
The museum collects national art and world art, including religious paintings, graphics, sculpture, decorative art, in both permanent collections and special exhibitions. Like the one we had the chance to see by Ludmila Tsoncheva, greatly inspired by old neighborhoods in Chișinău, but also Moldovan villages and Crimea.
One of the things that made the strongest impression on me was to see the statue of Mihai Eminescu, our national poet, but at the same time to remind myself that we were actually in another country.
Eminescu. Because I know Eminescu. I know my Eminescu.
It's like that Eminescu look.
Mihai Eminescu was born in 1850 in the historical region of the Principality of Moldavia, before Romania was formed. So obviously, as a cultural figure, he is important both for us Romanians and for Moldovans.
After the art museum, we thought it was a good idea to visit the National Library across the street. Unfortunately, it was about to close, so we could only see the ground floor. The day was coming to an end, so we tried getting a taxi to go home. Yet the one taxi that did stop for us asked for an absurd price, like 3 times as much as the ride would normally have cost. So, out of principle, we ended up walking in the cold for 20 minutes. At the end, we stopped by the hypermarket, conveniently located downstairs from our place, to get some water, since the one we had gotten the day before had this strong, nasty, metallic mineral taste. As with a lot of products, there was a mix of Romanian, Moldovan, and Russian brands.
Ce apă luăm? Putem să luăm și Dorna.
Dorna? This one?
Or Bucovina, it's cheaper. No, it's not actually.
It was Sunday by this point, a day we didn't do anything but laze around the apartment and then reconnect with our shallow, vain selves by going shoe shopping at the mall.
Baby, who would have thought that we were accommodated just 5 minutes from this Moldova mall? Hello, Moldova.
You know you're gonna film me with that gingerbread man over there.
The triumph of capitalism. Capitalism.
Many speak about Moldova as this leftover, loser, last place, communist, derelict place where basically no one wants to be. And this is true in some aspects, but in other aspects, like in this mall, for a while, walking through its shops, you get the feeling that this country's economy might actually be a little bit more normal.
We said this is an origins honeymoon because the main place we wanted to see was not some museum, although those were cool, but the place where my grandfather used to live, which was here, at this address. The actual house no longer exists, this one is too new to be it. But still, it did make an impression to be here. In short, my grandfather was born in 1902, when Moldova was in the Russian Empire, from Ukrainian roots, and lived in Chișinău until 1924, when Moldova was in Romania. In 1924, he moved to Buzău, which historically had always been in today's Romania, and then to Constanța, where my dad was born in 1939. Quite complicated, I know. But for us people in this part of Europe, mixed origins are an actual thing.
Having checked origins explorations off the list, we headed to the very heart of downtown Chișinău, the Stefan cel Mare Boulevard. This building on the left is the City Hall of Chișinău.
Speaking of Stephen the Great, this voivod, or ruler of the Principality of Moldavia in the 15th century, is quite of a big deal in Moldova, and in Romania too, for that matter. Having ruled for an amazing 47 years, he remained in history for his resilience in fighting the Ottomans and keeping the integrity of his little state, as well as for cultural development and for having built a lot of churches. In fact, in 1992 he was actually sanctified by the Romanian Orthodox Church.
More surprising than anything else was this area here on the side of the boulevard, full of souvenir stands and artists selling their original work. While we were there, we thought the thing was, just temporary, a pop-up. But then we discovered that this market is actually permanent. You can even find it on Google Maps. After having mailed some postcards from the central office, we took a stroll down the boulevard in search of our next destination, the Triumphal Arch.
Built in 1840, the purpose of the Triumphal Arch was to commemorate the victory of the Russian Empire over the Ottoman Empire during the Russo-Turkish War.
Next on our list was a glorious cathedral named after the Nativity. It is the central holy place for the Orthodox Church in Moldova.
Since we were there just after Christmas, the park hosted a special seasonal market, boasting more stalls and knickknacks than a tourist could ask for. Quite the cool vibe,
if we do say so ourselves.
You can get a very Tarkovsky-like, right?
So we're here in Moldova. Oh my god, it's so weird. Blah 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 blah. So much blah blah blah. No, that was just silence. Cinematography.
B-roll.
Scenes.
We're trying to make this look like a vlog.
See how pretty is it to spin?
Yeah.
Wow!
Hands are freezing.
Your dedication to the film is you're like Sofia Coppola. That's a pretty globe, huh?
Oh, that's a pretty shot with the birds.
You're like Sofia Coppola.
Before leaving, a little bit of history on the cathedral. The original was completed in 1836, but bombed during World War II, with its surviving bell tower finally destroyed by the communists in 1962. Despite these external horrors, and against all odds, a new one stands tall today. A symbol of strength, the bell tower we see was erected finally in 1997.
Across the street from the Cathedral Park is the Stefan cel Mare Park, the oldest park in Chișinău. By the time we got there, as you can see, we were freezing. There was only a little time to stop and see the monument to Stephen the Great before running on home.
On our way home, after 15 minutes of trying to find a taxi, but failing, we saw this neat row of street art. It was a wonderful display of fairy tale scenes and depictions of battles, like a Moldovan Sistine chapel, but public and for anybody to see at eye level. A refreshing pop of color in the gloomy and not so very inviting landscape that this particular street had to offer.
The following shots are quite self-explanatory given that our last night in Chișinău was actually New Year's Eve 2019, welcoming the brilliant 2020.
What's good?
Baby, what's the time?
I always step back from the balcony. Somebody's gonna Oh my god! Woo! Yeah. Take a step back, bro. What if some bitch fires one from right here?
Is it midnight?
Yeah. Happy New Year, baby.
Never seen anything like this?
Never seen no shit like this.
What?
Yo, no. Yo, these people are crazy. Shooting off fucking things like this. Damn.
Da. Deci la mulți ani acum gospodina. Așa. Și ok. Vezi pe
Let's not ignore one of the main attractions of Moldova. It's food. Now, being the freaky foodies that we are, we tackled it slightly different. Instead of how honeymooners usually rest and relax, we only went out to eat a total of 3 times in 5 days. The majority of the time was spent doing our own groceries and actually cooking Moldovan dishes from this beautiful hardcover recipe book.
Okay, so we have our #1 hypermarket haul, grocery haul.
As you can see, our first grocery haul included plenty of fruits and vegetables, milk, oats, eggs, noodles, all imaginable spices, corn flour, tomato paste, salt, oil, water, beer, wine, all the way to laundry detergent, shampoo, and conditioner.
Show us the damage, dude.
So this is 1,046 Moldovan lei, which is the equivalent of roughly 250 Romanian lei. Today we found this super cute and interesting Moldovan cookbook with facts about people, places, and cuisine and wine and stuff like that. And we're gonna try to make 2 very simple dishes. And first one is this one. It's like a simple basic potato soup. And the second thing we're gonna try to make is this one. This. Baked potatoes with tomato sauce.
You're just gonna put them in naked like that without washing?
I did wash them.
You did?
Yeah.
Thus began our cooking extravaganza. The recipes we selected were the ones that didn't take too long to cook, nor required wild ingredients. Since, we would rather spend evenings watching movies, wink wink, on top of the fact that we didn't want to fill up our rental apartment's pantry.
Side note, we did end up bringing a huge bag of ingredients back to Bucharest anyway.
Has anyone explained to you how wine is a big deal in Moldova? Now, we didn't get to visit the famous Cricova winery, a mere bus ride out of town, with over 120 kilometers of tunnels to explore. But we did enjoy more than our fair share of Moldovan wine, peacefully in the comfort of our Chișinău apartment in the open, snowy air.
Moldovan cuisine is similar to Romanian cuisine, although with some important differences on account of the region's history, the tug-of-war between Turkic and Slavic influences on eating. Nevertheless, differences aside, the culinary overlaps between the neighboring nations are due to its shared, highly fertile black soil. From soups and borscht to sarmale and polenta, fried meats and stews, dumplings and pancakes and pies, Moldovans have them all.
Perhaps we made a mistake by not going out to eat at restaurants for most of our trip.
My one Moldovan coworker later told me that we had missed out on the best part that Moldova had to offer, its food and entertainment.
Yeah, but nevertheless, we thought we would have more fun cooking ourselves, and we did.
Baby, are you my entertainer or what?
Baby, I'm under the spell of paternal.
New Year's Eve special. A luxurious Moldovan dinner with whales.
Our extra special New Year's dinner consisted of roast quails, which we slightly burnt, but were positively delicious.
Do you like this cozy place, baby?
One of the 3 restaurants we did go to on this trip was a really pretty one inside a hotel, which we found randomly on our way between the Military Museum and the Art Museum on the 31st of August Street. We later tried to locate it on Google Maps for the purpose of this vlog, but it is nowhere to be found.
Look what they have. Prepelica.
Oh my god, no thank you.
Hell no, right?
No. Had enough prepelica for this year.
I want something safe.
We were lucky enough to also have a restaurant downstairs from our building. So, on the last day, we stopped to have lunch after checkout before going to the train station.
Restaurant receipt is a summary of how I felt the whole time we were in Moldova. Although I was quite aware of its history and of the fact that everything here is a mixture of cultures, languages, and traditions, I guess I was just expecting it to be more Romanian. And it is in many aspects. Streets have names of Romanian historical figures, kings, writers, politicians, the same I learned about in school. Its national anthem is in Romanian. Its official language is Romanian. Well, it's called Moldovan in their constitution, but guess what? They're identical, just with a different accent and some regional words that, for the most part, we understand. Growing up, we got used to calling Moldovans the brothers beyond the river Prut. On the one hand, it pains me to see that a lot of things in Moldova are so Russified. But on the other hand, who are we to judge? My grandfather was born in Moldova when it was part of the Russian Empire. My last name is Ukrainian. Nobody is a pure breed in this part of Europe. I love Romanian culture, but Russian culture is pretty badass too. I said Russian, not Soviet, that's a whole different story. So in the end, what are we? We are whatever we feel in our hearts. P.S. We strongly recommend going to Chișinău in summer because
it's cold!
It's also gloomy as hell, and the images don't do justice to how pretty Chișinău actually is.
I, on the other hand, thought Chișinău was beautiful in all its gloom, and what's wrong with a little concrete here and there? And that concludes our Origins honeymoon! Ta-da!